And welcome everybody to the Daily Space Weather. I'm your host Dan, aka smAsho. Today we'll be talking about how filaments are back. The chance of coronal mass ejections is back. And about the projection of facts. First thing we're doing is we're looking at the sun here. It's the last day of activity in a composite animation of the 171 angstroms wavelength of the SDO, as well as the colorized magnetogram. Three different sunspot groups are currently visible in the Earth-facing region. The portion of the solar disk visible from Earth. We're going to be doing things a little bit in a different order today. So join me to look at a whole bunch more interesting data. First thing we're going to do is we're going to have a look at the colorized magnetogram in very high resolution to see what's going on currently. And there's the current high-res image. Sunspot 2786 has shrunk a little bit. That's this one here. That's this one underneath my pointer. And not a lot of activity in the past 24. Here is the most current refresh. There's a close-up of sunspot 2786. A whole bunch of ombre in between these sunspots. This is increasing the probability of coronal mass ejections, although not solar flares detectable at Earth. Why? Because of the Earth-facing quiet effect. There's sunspot 2787, which we called 2 days ago. Did you see the video? I don't know. Here at the Smash News Network, we are the world's leading solar forecaster, as we've been proving for a couple of years that we're able to forecast things before NOAA, NASA, and anybody else on the internet, and I defy you to show me anybody ahead of us in terms of our ability to forecast solar activity. Here's a 48-hour SDO video in 193 angstroms. And we will show you some detailed helioviewer movies toward the end of the video. You do see some solar flares here. I'll let this play through a second time before we move on to a whole bunch more data, because we like our viewers to understand the big picture as we immerse ourselves in the data and attempt to understand the relationship of the different phenomenon. Next, we'll look at a whole bunch of more things. And next on the list is the 10.7 centimeter radio flux. Now, the sun's outer corona produces a radio flux, which is a direct proportional graph of sunspot number. And when the sun is at very low levels of activity, one of the ways we determine correctly when solar minimum actually occurs is by looking at the radio flux, as it gives us insight into solar activity even when there are no sunspots. Here's the 1-year chart, and we are at 106. So well off of solar minimum, which occurred just over a year ago last November. And you can see we are more than halfway up the ramp back to solar maximum. And let me just get rid of Epic Pen. By the way, we are streaming live to Twitch right now. It's twitch.tv/smAsho. I don't know why Epic Pen didn't work today. You're going to have to deal with no Epic Pen today. No purple ink. No purple ink, I think, on the images. And just bear with me a minute while I get that image back up on the screen. There we go. And we cover the 10.7 centimeter radio flux daily here at the Smash News Network. Here's one of our helioviewer movies. This is the 304 angstroms full disk view. Great view of sunspot 2786. And I forgot to loop it. There we go. The dangers of streaming live, folks. Let that play through a second time and then move on to a bunch more data, and then we'll come back back to the HelioViewer movies again. And if you haven't seen our playlist, smAshomash.org presents The Sun, we just recently produced the 9th video in the series. You can link to all of that at smAshomash.com. Next, I'd like to thank our patrons, the true source of funding for the content here at the Smash News Network. Thanks, patrons. Please consider becoming a patron if you haven't already done so. It's patreon.com/SmashoMash. And we do send perks to our patrons, such as early warnings, ringtones, original music, and all sorts of other stuff. So check it out. Now, today we're not going to have any Smash Lights or Cosmology segments, as we'll be producing a second video. I will show you one social media site here, our Facebook page, as we put up some interesting information on there last night. I won't talk about it on today's YouTube video. You'll have to go check it out at facebook.com/SmashoMash. We've got pinned posts there. And don't forget to enter the promo code SMASHO on checkout on any Teespring orders to save 10% through Christmas. And let's get into some more data here, such as the real-time solar wind, and there's a real-time solar wind for you. Fairly uneventful here over the past 24 hours. We have seen a recent shift in the solar wind speed and density. Solar wind density making it all the way down to half a proton per cubic centimeter. You've got to have 2 cubic centimeters for 1 proton at those levels, practically. So very low levels of solar wind density there. Current levels at 1.9 protons per cubic centimeter. Current solar wind speed down to 413 kilometers a second. KP index, a measurement of global geomagnetism, pegged at 3 for the past 9 hours. Those bars are 3-hour increments. And here's one of the geospace movies. Let me just give that a moment to load here. We'll show you the density and the pressure today, as we should see that density drop off. This will be 4 hours of data, courtesy University of Michigan. And if you're wondering where it's derived, head to Geospace Magnetosphere Movies page here. Click at the Details tab, which you can see at the bottom of your screen. The Details tab. And you can read all about the space weather modeling framework there. You can see that drop down in density expressed as pressure. Here it is expressed as density. And you'll see these light-colored bars coming in from the left. That's lower density, higher density shown in dark blue. And I think maybe people are on vacation. There you can see that low density coming in. And then a return to a higher density. I think maybe University of Michigan's on vacation. Somebody's not paying attention to this, as this will not animate. Anyway, here's what the magnetic perturbations were on the ground level at 12:48 Universal Time. And there they are. I thought it would actually show us an older image. That's the current situation. We do see some magnetism there, and that's all from the solar wind speed. No proton strikes, no surprise there, especially to our viewers, as we haven't seen any Earth-facing coronal mass ejections expected to create any sort of significant impacts on the magnetosphere. Here's a 3-day chart for the X-ray flux. And you can see a series of C-class flares. And again, check out our video yesterday, as we included a whole bunch of very detailed close-ups in various wavelengths of sunspot 2786, sunspot 2787, and 2785. Let me just check the life of the stream here for a moment, folks. Please bear with me, and we are good to go at the Smash News Network. If you're wondering what's going on above your head, as I usually am, I use in-the-sky.org. I face my star chart to the south. You can face yours whichever direction you like. I like to face mine to the south, as that's where the ecliptic is. And today, if you're up before dawn, you may see Venus and Mercury And the sun will be passing through Libra, Virgo, Leo, and Gemini, and finally setting in Taurus. I don't know if you care. I know nothing about astrology. Let's continue on here. Here's what's going on in the solar system. Looks like tomorrow's a full moon. There's where things will be in a week. And we may see Mercury showing up in the LASCO C3 in a couple of days, in about 10 days. Here's the GOES magnetometer, and you can see very sawtooth measurements happening here at the ionosphere layer, and we may be just about to make a current sheet polarity crossing. Here's some more information on that. That's a 3-day chart of the GOES 16 magnetometers. And here is the top view ecliptic plane field plot. This data is derived from 51 ground-based magnetometers, as well as magnetometers on stereo A out here at Lagrangian 0.5 and stereo B located at Lagrangian 0.4. Keep in mind the data is 1 hour and 58 minutes old and could change with no warning. And I wouldn't be surprised to see the Earth snap back into a North Pole current sheet, which would be shown there in green in the next 24 hours. Next, we'll look at different views of the same data. Here's the coronal hole field plot, and you can see some coronal hole migration happening here. You can see some South Pole coronal hole data showing up close to the equator, as well as North Pole. And you can see some major changes in the B field as the overall field situation is being dominated by sunspot 2786. Here's another view of the same thing, which also shows you the poloidal Z fields. North Z field shown in green, South Z field shown in red. And last but not least, an animation of the corona's magnetic fields. And looking quite chaotic there, as we've seen coronal mass ejections and so on over the past few days. No surprises there. It's showing you open potential field force lines in black or purple, depending on where they're located, and closed potential field surface source lines in pink. Next, we're going to look at the electron flux, which gives you an idea of things like communication errors, GPS errors, and so on. We don't see significant charging hazards except over the Central Pacific, and those are fairly minor. Here's the 1-year chart of the electron flux. Forecast is for this to remain level, and I would say we may have a little bit of an uptick here. I would say this will be maybe a little bit higher. We'll get back into warning levels again, perhaps today. Certainly looks like it may happen. There's a 3-year chart, and those warning levels are that red line, that dashed red line. That is the equivalence of 1,000 pulse flux units. And our Patreons are probably well aware of that, as we regularly send out alerts warning our patrons of communications errors and so on. Again, if you'd like to get early warnings pretty much before anybody else in the world, head to patreon.com/smashamash, become a patron, help support the content, and increase the probability that these videos will remain free and publicly visible. Next, looking at the total electron content forecast. This includes the entire air column up to the thermosphere. We see some very high density regions here over places such as India, as well as the Central Pacific. Next, we'll look at just one slice of this, just the ionosphere layer. And there's the ionosphere layer for you. It was looking pretty anomalous yesterday, highly charged up underneath the sun-facing portion of the planet. And we see a bit of that again today. Let's bring up the latest image. That one is from 12 o'clock Universal Time. Looking similar to yesterday, highly charged up underneath the sun, which is located someplace around here at this point. Next, we'll look at volcanoes. After I check the stream in the chat once again, please leave us a comment. If you're viewing on YouTube or BitChute, we greatly appreciate that. Thanks to our BitChute subscribers, we've just gotten over 250 now. Kluchevskoye is erupting, it's exploding indeed, producing a 22,000-foot ash plume over the Kamchatka Peninsula. We also saw one of the largest earthquakes in the past 24. We'll cover it on the next slide. Suwanosejima, flight level 060, 6,000-foot ash plume there. Semeru exploding, flight level 160. That's an uptick big time at Indonesia. Semeru producing a 16,000-foot plume of ash. Dukono exploding as well, flight level 070 there. Popocatépetl, volcanic ash not seen in satellite. Please do not pole vault the caldera. It could be unfortunate for your health outcomes. Revenador is exploding, flight level 150, a 15,000-foot ash plume above that caldera. And Sabancaya is exploding as well, 25,000-foot ash plume there. Please don't attempt a back handspring over that. We really do see an ongoing drought of earthquakes here. Very low numbers of earthquakes. We saw a bunch of deep quakes yesterday, and I would say raise the alarm bells here, as we've seen a 7, 8, and 9 magnitude earthquake drought, even a 6 magnitude earthquake drought. If you're in an earthquake-prone zone, please have an earthquake plan. Know which building facades may collapse if you evacuate yours, as getting hit by a collapsing building is an unfortunate health outcome as well. Here's a deep quake in Indonesia which struck yesterday at 16:43 Universal Time. Let's scroll up the list. Again, it's a drought in earthquakes, folks. I believe the largest of the past 24 was this 5.3 on the southern Kamchatka Peninsula. We also saw one on the Mid-Atlantic Ridge in between South America and Africa. Another deep quake strikes Afghanistan. Perhaps that is a spot fixing to have a big quake, as we've seen lots of deep quakes over Afghanistan over the past, indeed, couple years. But nothing at a 6 or 7 magnitude. Next, we're looking at windy.com's pressure map. And I'm going to advance this into the GFS forecast for tomorrow. Come on. You can do it. There we go. There is a low pressure system speeding across the Pacific Ocean, south of the Aleutian Islands, as well as one hanging out in southern Alaska. That could be an earthquake risk there. That is an anomalous low pressure. See the way that's moving north? That is a bit of an anomalous low pressure there. Here's where we expect things to be at 12 noon tomorrow. High pressure dominating the northwest of the United States, and a series of funky low pressure systems all around Australia. Next, nullschool.net. We're looking at the jet streams. It's the 250 hectopascal wind currents. A great snapshot for anybody's weather across the planet. Probably the most valuable thing you could look at if you had to look at only one piece of data. This will even give you an idea of whether or not you'll have cloudy or sunny days. Here is the jet stream scenario for the eastern world. Once again, we see the jet stream flowing east to west over the Indian Ocean, which is backwards. Ask a pilot if you don't believe me. And don't worry, folks, we won't tell you a lie or commit fraud in any way. It's just not going to happen, as our sacred honor will not be violated. Next, looking at lightningmaps.org. It's where I like to go when I hear thunder. It's a great place to convince your friends and foes that you're Thor or Odin or something like that. And if you're located in Lubbock, get outside and look to your southeast. You may see some interesting phenomenon down there. It looks like that's probably going to miss you. Also, Abilene, Odessa, and San Angelo. Take some time-lapse photography. Perhaps you'll see some sprites, red elves, green goblins, or other weird stuff above these thunderheads. They are significant. Hey, Snyder, there's thunder rolling in. Also, Hamlin. Also some isolated lightning over the central Atlantic. Here's a lightning mapper, and you can see there was quite a bit of lightning over the state of Texas. And we will look into actually making some of our own photography for lightning. It's all in the works. Also things like telescopes and all kinds of other content that you've never seen before at the Smash News Network. If you're a new viewer, we're just barely getting started, folks. We haven't even begun to create content. This is barely scratching the surface of the capabilities of the Smash News Network. Here's some meteorology stuff for all you American viewers. And before I continue with that, I would remind you that it's your job to make America not suck again. Yes, MANSA. This is completely apolitical, folks. MANSA. If you're relying on the government to make America not suck again, well, you're wasting your time, because it is up to you to MANSA. So please do so. Visit smashamash.com for links, and you can find links to the Teespring stores also on all of our social media accounts. Don't forget to enter the promo code smAsho to receive a 10% discount at checkout on all orders through Christmas. So here's a U.S. Doppler radar map. It looks like we're going to get some rain in Pennsylvania once again. Long line of storms stretching all the way from North Carolina along the Gulf Coast. And some snow there falling in the Texas stovepipe. Some perhaps wintry mix, although I sort of doubt it based on the way that radar looks. And for all you weather noobs, keep in mind that the Doppler radar is ground-based radar systems which are measuring movement in the air column. And this is why it sometimes shows you stuff that seems to make no sense. And when it does make no sense, what you want to look at is the water vapor map. So we're going to zoom in on that. And that is an interesting scenario happening there over northern Texas. Let's zoom in. For all of you weather pornographers, this is a bit of an odd scenario happening here. And what's happening there is you've got an upper level low getting over top of a bunch of low-level dry mass of air, and that is creating essentially an atmospheric waterfall in that region. Also, there's some cold air being shoved down from places like Utah and Colorado. So that should give you some idea of how those things are moving. And they're going to stagnate a little bit as that dry air is going to sort of hold things together. Remember, dry air more massive than wet air due to the molecular mass of atmospheric nitrogen. Atmospheric nitrogen more massive than water vapor. And that's why dry air is more massive than moist air and really does control the show. I understand meteorologists are typically talking about where precipitation occurs because it's important to people's travel plans and so on, but ultimately the real atmospheric inputs are the dry air. So, not to rain on your meteorological parade or anything, let's do a close-up here of Montana also, as we see an atmospheric pond. And just give that a minute to load. There we go. And there you can see a bunch of moisture hanging out on the leeward portion of the northern Rockies. Next, we're going to show you the synoptic map. And there are a bunch of filaments and so on. There's a synoptic map of the sun. And let's close things out with some HelioViewer movies, as there are some great ones to look at. So let's get into that. So we showed you the 304 angstroms video. There's that. Let's go on to the colorized, it's the non-colorized magnetogram. There you go. There's an animation of the magnetic fields. And that doesn't look like an animation at all. Here's sunspot 2787. And it actually has been producing a little bit of ejecta. Again, if you haven't seen our smAsho.org presents the Sun series number 9, we put that up yesterday. You can link to that at smAshomash.com, our homepage, which has pretty much all of our links. And we've included the Earth scale there. And here's sunspot 2787 in 171 angstroms. How about the southern hemisphere in 171 angstroms? Great view of setting sunspot 2780 something on the right of your screen. I think it's 2784, is it? I think it's 2783 actually, and then you've got 2785 in the center of your screen, 2786 just to the left of that. Fantastic view in 171 angstroms, and again, the possibility of a significant coronal mass ejections has actually gone up now because there's some plasma suspended out there. Again, a bunch of filaments, so don't be surprised to see some ejecta happen today, although the likelihood of large solar flares has gone down due to the Earth-facing quiet effect, which I once again will not explain today, at least not on this video. Here is a close-up of the fields. And there we go, that's now animated. Excellent. And you can see those South Pole leading umbrae are quite big, and there are a bunch of umbra that have popped up in between those sunspots. There's a whole bunch of interaction going on there. And remember, folks, you don't need a solar flare for a coronal mass ejection. Don't get them mixed up. A solar flare is photons, and a coronal mass ejection is protons. Very, very different things, and they have very, very different effects. And last but not least, it's the 171 angstroms view. Thanks for tuning in. Please share the content in your social media. Consider becoming a patron. Support the channel by buying some stuff at Teespring. The prints are fantastic, and the Mansa shirt that I'm wearing today comes in all kinds of colors. Perhaps a blaze orange one, because nothing says don't run me over or shoot me like a blaze orange shirt. We are out, and we'll be making more content today. We hope you enjoy your Saturday. Thanks again for watching, and may that solar wind be at your back.